for the first time, Australia can see that a coal mine is underway in the Galilee Basin, or it will be after the announcement today. And we just heard the chairman then say from India that he expects it all to happen next day. Joining me now is the Australian CEO of the Adani Mine Company, Lucas Dow, coming to us from Brisbane. I have to say it's been a long, tough road, Lucas, 8+ years. What's been the reaction up north with today's announcement from the Queensland State Government?
Oh, good evening, Peter. Yeah, obviously, great day for us, and I think, more importantly, as you just referenced, great day for regional Queensland, in particular North and Central Queensland. So the phone's been running hot since we got notification that the plan had been approved, and people are very excited about it, and as are we. Obviously, now we want to get on with delivering on our promise and bringing jobs to the regions.
It was a real political football in the recent federal campaign. We couldn't get a lot of Labor MPs politically, in interview crosses and things like that, to even say the word Adani. You got a lot of mixed messages. Certainly the unions, some unions, the mining unions were for it, others were vehemently against it. Labor seems though to have changed their tune. I want to play you some comments today from the new Shadow Minister for Resources, Joel Fitzgibbon. He had this to say.
We've said it all along that it's got to be able to stand on its own 2 feet without taxpayer subsidies, and it's got to jump the most stringent environmental tests or hurdles. And today it did both of those things, or demonstrated it could, and on that basis we should be welcoming it.
Well, you've waited a long time to hear that from federal Labor. How does it feel?
Well, it's obviously very encouraging. I mean, the reality is, as you said in your intro, this is the first mine in the Galilee Basin, and so there's a tremendous opportunity for Queensland and Australia to prosper on this, and importantly also for us to be able to export our high quality coals and displace lower quality coals that are being sourced from other jurisdictions, all the while creating jobs for thousands of Queenslanders, and in particular in regional Queensland. So it's great to hear that federal Labor's pulling in behind the project now as well. And ultimately these projects shouldn't be partisan. We expect to see people get behind particularly regional Queenslanders and support jobs, and also creating opportunities in the mining game, particularly given how responsibly we mine, the fact that we've got stringent regulations here in Australia as it relates to both safety and environment. So we're the best placed to be able to do this. So we are quite excited, and now we're looking forward to getting on with it.
Oh, just to pick up a couple of things you said there, like you've been in the mining industry your entire working life. I interviewed 2 people overseas, obviously Mr Adani, who said that there is plenty of coal for what he needs, for his company needs in India. It's just poor quality coal. And by burning Australian thermal coal, he gets greater efficiencies, of course, but it's better in terms of emissions. So it's better for the environment. Well, you don't often hear that said by activists in Australia. But also the Secretary of Power said that the way in which the growth profile of industry in India will develop, let alone the people who are yet to get power, but the way in which the country is growing, coal's going to be a big part of their plans. And if Australia doesn't sell it, he says that's more to your fault, Australia, more to your economic damage than India's, because we'll just go elsewhere. That's the reality of this project, isn't it?
Absolutely, Peter, and that's what we've been banging the drum about, is that ultimately the choice that we've got is we either export our high quality coal and create the jobs here in Australia, or alternatively it's going to come from other jurisdictions like Indonesia and the US, where it's lower quality coal, and it's going to mean those jobs go offshore. So, I'm parochial. I want Australians, I want Queenslanders and regional Queenslanders to benefit, and I want us to do the right thing by the environment.
Oh, well, as I said at the start, your boss said right there live on camera, you couldn't have got a tougher message. He expects it all to start next day. What happens from here? Talk to me about jobs. How quickly do you break ground? When do you start hiring people?
Well, Peter, we've already been hiring. So, if you had seen our Townsville office today, the numbers are swelling, and just trying to get everyone in the same room to let them know that we've got the approvals was, a bit of a challenge for us today. So that's obviously great, because they're jobs that are in Townsville. We've already started to recruit in Rockhampton and across other regional centres. So we can expect that to ramp up over the coming days and weeks. The immediate activity for us is obviously we've got our safety checks that we need to undertake, and we've got a team out on site. We've got about 60 people already on site undertaking that sort of work. So the next few days we'll just be focused on making sure that we've got all our safety protocols in place, everyone's inducted, we've got all our environmental requirements ticked off, and then we'll be breaking ground. So we'll just work through that over the next couple of days. Obviously, after 8 years, we're keen and wanting to get into it, but we're not going to compromise on safety nor on our environmental commitments in an effort to get going.
Yeah, I want to play a grab from Michaelia Cash. She's the federal Liberal minister. She was very strong in her praise today.
It is a great win today for Queenslanders and, of course, for job creation in Queensland. The way you spell jobs in Queensland is A-D-A-N-I.
What are your commitments about bringing on apprentices or Indigenous workers, people in some of these regional communities that have had a bit of a hard road getting into the employment market? Do you have special commitments there, Lucas?
Absolutely, Peter. So we're going to deliver over 1,500 direct jobs during the ramp-up of construction and a further 6,750 indirect jobs. So we're talking about, during the ramp-up of construction phase, 8,250 jobs. Importantly, we've also got commitments with our Indigenous traditional owners. So we've got minimum commitments of 7.5% Aboriginal employment. On top of that, we've got dedicated programs to ensure that Aboriginal enterprises get the opportunity to be able to deliver on $250 million worth of contracting and service opportunities. In addition, 10% of all trainees will also be Aboriginal. So we're absolutely heavily invested in this. We want to be successful. We want to be able to provide the traditional owners with opportunities that are not going to change this current generation, but generations to come. So our traditional owners are obviously very excited about it, as are we, and now we're really looking forward to being able to get on board and continue the great work that we've already made in terms of advancing Aboriginal employment on the project to date.
When are we going to see the first shipment?
So, Peter, we've got around a 2-year construction period. So we've got to obviously build the mine and also 200 kilometres of rail. So those activities have been sequenced so that essentially at the point that the rail is ready to go, that we'll be able to ship at around 10 million tonnes per annum. So that's going to take us just under 2 years to be able to see that happen.
All right, I want to put up on the screen a graphic of the Galilee Basin, and people will see where the Carmichael mine, I don't have to say proposed anymore, the real Carmichael mine will go. And that track you were just talking about, there's a lot of work there required to get it to port. It's interesting, if you talk to the activists, you'd think that the mine was right there on the edge of the Great Barrier Reef, but of course it's not. The coal will be shipped out there from Abbott Point. But do you think, looking at that map and all the other proposed mines, now that you're a goer, do you think we're going to see investment kick off for the basin, a real opening up of the Galilee?
Well, that's certainly our hope and expectation, and I say that as a Queenslander, as an Australian. I want to see that development and that opportunity afforded to generations to come. I saw today that actually one of the neighbouring coal tenements, the MD from that company was actually saying that they've had private equity interest out of the US, and one of the hurdles that they'd set was they needed to see Adani approved. And he said, well, clearly with Adani approved now, that it's game on for him. So that's obviously very exciting as well, because really what we want to see here in Queensland is those opportunities for regional Queenslanders. And as I said before, I'm unapologetic and I'm parochial about it. I'd rather see those jobs stay here in Australia than see them exported elsewhere.
Yeah, when I was in India, I was only there for 2 days on the ground and a day either side travelling, so it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. But as we got around and spoke to other corporate people, not so much your chairman. I mean, he couldn't have been more glowing in his praise about the Australia-India relationship. But others privately, and one on camera, was pretty worried about how this 8-year period, the process, the hurdles, the politicisation of an investment push was being seen in India, and there was a lot of comments about sovereign risk. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I would have said, a month ago, I think those comments were probably well-founded and on the money. I think we've certainly seen now that there's been an increased focus around ensuring that Queensland and Australia continues to hold attractiveness for international investment, and I think the recent decisions and the rigour in which the Department of Environment and Science has applied and now concluded and approved these plans has helped to restore that. Clearly, India is going to continue to be a very important trading partner for us. There's over 1.3 billion Indians that are clearly aspirational. There's over 850 million of those that are under the age of 35. So we've got an emerging young middle class right on our doorstep that we've got the clear opportunity to be able to establish trade relationships with. And I think the chairman pointed out our project represents the largest investment by an Indian company in Australia, so it's certainly setting the pace. And clearly, India and the Indian business community will be watching closely around our project. So I certainly think we're certainly back on track now, and I'm encouraged and expect to see further Indian investment in Australia.
Yeah, and as we know, that free trade agreement is still on the table. It's still subject to negotiations. This might be just the impetus it needs for the government, particularly obviously with the return of Prime Minister Modi, just recently re-elected. It might be the impetus for a re-elected Scott Morrison and a re-elected Narendra Modi to get it over the line. Well, Lucas Dow, the last thing you need to do tonight is to be talking to me. You've done a good job. I know you've talked to a lot of media, but you've got to go off now and celebrate with your team what's been a pretty phenomenal achievement after 8 long years. Good luck with it all, Dow. I'd like to keep in touch with you. I want to keep you honest. And every time you reach some sort of job milestone or break ground, got something to show us, I'd love to catch up. So I hope we can do that. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Lucas.
Thanks, Peter. And just one final thing, I just want to say a big thanks to everyone that supported us, and particularly those folks in regional Queensland. It's made the difference, and we're now absolutely focused on delivering on our promise. So thanks again, Peter, and thanks for having me along this evening.